Don't use Easter as an excuse to screw up your carnivore diet. Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So it's been a while since my last video, just over a month, but I'm back on a regular schedule. I'm going to be putting out 3 videos a week, and they're going to be short videos, probably under 10 minutes if possible, between 8 and 10 minutes. So that way it's not going to be too much information. It's something you can listen to easily in the background should you need to. But let's get to the topic at hand. When it comes to Easter, that's a particularly difficult holiday for people because it's not only holiday where you're around family and friends, but there's a lot of junk food. There's an exorbitant amount of junk food. There's an unrealistic amount of junk food around your day-to-day routine, and it can stick around for weeks afterwards, maybe even longer. So it puts you in a difficult spot, especially if you have a sugar addiction, if you have a carbohydrate addiction. You're going to struggle with this holiday more than lots of other holidays. And I want you to keep in mind, you can do better. You don't need to struggle. If you struggle, there's a good chance that, there's a very good chance that you just haven't been strict enough on a carnivore diet, because once you've been strict for a certain amount of time, maybe everyone's a little different. It could be a couple weeks for some people. It could be a few months for others. But trust me, when you get there and you've passed that point where these foods tempt you, you'll get to the point where you're fine. You can be around it all the time. It doesn't faze you. And you need to start sometimes with a big hill. So sometimes what happens with people is these holidays are overwhelming when it comes to being around all this junk food. And sometimes people find it stressful because that can be another trigger for people. You're going to family events and not even just having the complications of a stressful family. Maybe you get along great with your family. I get along great with my family, but it can make for a busy weekend. It can make for a busy weekend if you have 1, 2, or more Easter dinners to go to. Maybe you have your family, maybe you're divorced or separated, or you're with someone who you have to go and be with their family as well. So you get multiple dinners, which means multiple meals that you're around where there's a lot you can't eat, and it can be really overwhelming. So we're going to tackle a few different ways to manage this, but more importantly, I want you to keep in mind, more than trying to understand what you can do to avoid these issues, is how to deal with these issues, because that's the real problem. This shouldn't be a difficult weekend for you if you've been strict. So you can use this as a possible challenge for yourself for this weekend so that you can actually do better. And when you can manage a weekend like this, day-to-day life is going to be pretty easy when you're on carnivore. And I need you to recognize that. It's not like you're going to a dinner where there's not going to be any food you can eat, because typically these dinners revolve one big meat dish. Maybe it's a roast, maybe it's a turkey, maybe it's ham of some kind, whatever it is. There's a lot of food there you can eat. Now, what I recommend more than anything is just being 100% strict. It's easy once you're strict to maintain that strictness after a while. It's super easy. It's one of the easiest things I've ever done in my life. The one thing that I find amazing about carnivore, and I'm going to make a video about this in the near future, is the fact that I haven't gone backwards in weight. I went backwards a couple times because of a challenge I was doing. Like, I always put on weight with a high fat version of carnivore, but that weight always slides off afterwards. Doesn't take too long. But what's interesting is it's never been putting back on weight after doing a carnivore diet, because what happens is I'm consistent with it. It's easy for me to maintain a zero carb lifestyle. When you have to go back and have a little mouthful of this food here or there, or maybe you think, oh, it's only a dinner and it's only a long weekend, and that, it only happens once every few months. Well, you know what? You're not really being honest with yourself. And what you're doing is you're compromising, because those dinners happen more often than you would like. Maybe the big ones happen around Easter and Christmas holidays and things like that. But there's lots of other small ones that you probably give in with that you don't really pay enough attention to, or you minimize what happens when you go to these barbecues, as an example, all summer long from spring till fall. So what happens is you might have a little bit, maybe it's an alcohol. So maybe if you still need to have alcohol because it's just your social thing to do and you want to tackle one burden at a time, at least make it a vodka. Make it an yeah, but I don't like vodka. Well, you know what? you don't like your health issues either. Maybe you came to carnivore through obesity, or maybe you came to carnivore because you're trying to manage an autoimmune disorder. Whatever it is, especially if it's obesity, you're going to have to do some things you don't like for a while. And if it means instead of having a beer or wine or some other drink, maybe having a vodka or gin or something that is zero carb, so you can at least say, you know what, I had alcohol that weekend, but it was zero carb. It threw me out of ketosis, but it was zero carb. It's not going to give you the urge to have more of it when you're gone, unless you have a problem with alcohol, and that's a different story. But if you're trying to go zero carb, make that your compromise. Don't make having a roast with gravy on it your compromise, because the gravy is not part of a carnivore diet. You have to be strict for a while, and once you've been strict, run with it. It's going to be easy to run with. And what I love about this is I haven't put weight back on, and you're going to experience the same thing if weight is a part of your issue. Now, weight's one of my issues. I just feel good doing a carnivore diet, and it's not worth cheating for me, because then I don't feel good afterwards. And what good is that if you're doing this just enough to torture yourself, but not good enough that you're not getting all the benefits of a carnivore diet? So you need to stop and think about that. That's a really important point. Don't do it just enough to make life difficult for yourself. Do it all the way. Your all the way might be 98%, and that's good enough for you. But some of us don't get results until we go 100%. And if you're getting to this point where you're struggling with carnivore and you're still struggling with sugar and carb addiction, you can't let something like a holiday screw you up. It's just an excuse. It's a reason. It's a speed bump you see coming a mile away, and you can easily prevent going over that speed bump to the point where it's going to cause damage. Because when you walk over a speed bump, it's not an issue, is it? When you go around a speed bump, I've done it before, it's not an issue. But when you have to tackle that speed bump and you're not managed, you don't have the right mindset for it, it's like you're doing 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour over that speed bump, and it's just going to cause a big jolt, and it's going to create a setback. You don't want that. You want to be able to handle these things. Now, if you can't handle something like a dinner, there's certain things you can do to make it easier. Fill yourself up before you get there. And I mean fill yourself on red, fatty meat. You're going to be satiated, not just having red meat, but fatty meat. Do that before you have that dinner. Fill yourself up as much as you can, because the consequence of filling yourself up is going to be nothing compared to the consequences you'll have if you have any junk food or any food that's off the carnivore diet. Don't set yourself up for failure. So recognize that sometimes it's a hunger issue and sometimes it's a sugar and carbohydrate issue. And if you're full, you've already knocked half the challenge off the list. I've had holidays before where I was trying to get strict with carnivore and I just couldn't do it. I struggled with carnivore in the beginning for a really long time. Being strict with it was difficult for me because I was dealing with a really serious sugar and carbohydrate addiction. And what worked for me sometimes was just not going to the family dinner. You just say, you know what, I'm really not feeling well. That one time you're going to miss a family dinner is nothing in comparison to how good you're going to feel for a really long time once you've gotten strict on a carnivore diet. You can do this. I know you can. You just need the proper mindset. Set yourself up for success. Eat the foods you can eat while you're there. Eat a lot of food that you're allowed to eat before you get there, and just step out during dessert. Maybe stay away from the dinner table. Ask your spouse to keep it away for you. Just remember, your family wants to support you. They want to see you do well with this. They want you to set an example. I can guarantee your spouse wants you to set an example for your children. And they just have to understand your mindset. You're not a moderator. You're an abstainer. Simple as that. It shouldn't be a big deal for this junk food to be out of the house. When you think about it, there's no good reason for that junk food to be in the house. It's something that is not good for children. And we live in a society where it's okay to teach children to overindulge in this stuff. I used to do it all the time, and I grew into bad, unhealthy habits. And what you need to do is respect the fact that if you're an abstainer, you need support in the beginning. You let them know this won't be forever. If I do this well, it's not going to continue into next Easter. I've been with people, I've lived with people who aren't carnivore, and it's not an issue. I have no temptation to have any of that junk food. You just have to get over that hurdle. And like I said, it won't take long the more strict you are. If you're trying to do something like alternate day fasting or different types of fasts going into Easter weekend or through Easter weekend, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not a strict carnivore yet. If you're strict and you can go a day without eating or 3 days or a half a day without eating and you're going into Easter weekend, as an example, you're going to be fine if you're an experienced carnivore. It won't phase you. But if you're still struggling with that sugar and carbohydrate addiction, do not go into Easter weekend fasted in any way, shape, or form. If anything, for that weekend, I would recommend indulging in the foods you can eat. I don't recommend stuffing yourself typically, but I do recommend eating till you are very, very full or satisfied. It's tough to get full on a carnivore diet. You can get satiated. You can get to the point where you're like, I just can't eat more. But you're not stuffed like you would be if you had a pizza or if you had a bunch of junk food. So I want you to keep in mind, know your limits and try and work with them. Get your family to work with them. You can't always expect everyone to be on board because your parents or siblings or aunts, cousins, whoever is going to be at these family events, they're not necessarily in your corner when it comes to this or understanding it, but your spouse should be. They don't have to do it themselves, but they should understand your frame of mind. Ask for their support, and you're your own team in your home, under your roof, with your family. Try and get that support from them. They will give it to you. Let them know what it means to you, and let them know that they can help you out to be a better example to them. You want to be a better example to yourself and to them. I know you can do it. Be strict. Don't let a long weekend like Easter screw you up.